right, let's get started. So, hey, everybody, welcome to our webinar. My name is Andrew Townsend. I'm the marketing operations here at Smarties Streets. Today's webinar is going to be about how to get cleaner international address data in your database, and we're really excited to get started. However, before I introduce our presenter, allow me to go over just a couple housekeeping items. This webinar will be recorded. We'll send a copy of it out to everybody who registered, so you can be looking for that in your inbox within a couple of days. This also means that if you need to step out early, you'll be able to catch everything that you need in the recording. So also you'll be able to share it around with people that you think may benefit from this. So yeah, be looking for that. To interact with our presenter and other audience members, feel free to use the chat and question features in the Zoom webinar interface. Also, we will have Jeffrey Duncan, Technical Product Manager, joining us a little bit down the road. He's not quite here yet, but when he joins with us, he'll be ready to answer some of your more technical questions. And of course, I'll bring some of your questions up to our presenter during the Q&A portion at the end. So speaking of our presenter, today we have Wes Arnold, Product Marketing Manager, with us, and we're very excited to hear what he's going to share with us. So without further ado, Wes Arnold.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you everybody for joining us today. We're going to highlight a few different things, a few different of our products for international as we go through this webinar. So without waiting too much further, we're going to just jump into the agenda. We kind of like to keep our webinars a little bit shorter. I don't know if you guys are like me, but I get a little bit bored with hour-long webinars. So we try to keep it nice and short. So here's the agenda. So we'll start off with just a small introduction about Smarties Streets. Like I said, we like to kind of keep it short. And then we'll jump into the 3 steps. We're going to start with cleaning up existing databases, prevention of, once you've cleaned up your database, how to prevent poor address data from entering, and then long-term maintenance. What do you do once you've got that all cleaned up? And then we'll have a short Q&A, as Andrew mentioned. So just a side note, I had a cold over the weekend. My throat is a little raw for some reason. So if I pause for a second, I'm just getting a drink of water. So, all right, let's talk about Smarties Streets. I'm sure many of you are probably familiar with this, but just really quick, we've been in the location data intelligence industry since 2011, and we offer a variety of location data products. So address verification for both US and international. Also address autocompletion, US and international. And international is a new addition. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the webinar. We also offer rooftop geocoding. So if you're using some of our address verification products, you should be aware that we also offer very precise geocoding that goes along with that. And as well, reverse geocoding, where rooftop geocoding, if you give us the address, we're going to give you the exact coordinates of that structure. Reverse geocoding is the opposite, where you give us the coordinates, we'll give you the address of that structure. Here's a couple of reasons why people like us so much when they join with Smarties Streets. Number one, we have easy to follow documentation. Our founder, Jonathan Oliver, is a developer. And he's still heavily involved in developing some of our products. It's what he loves to do. And so he knows the frustration of trying to follow poor documentation. So we make sure that our documentation is easy to follow, readily accessible, so it makes it easier for developers to implement our solutions. We also have customer loving and accessible support. When I mentioned accessible, when I joined Smarties a couple of years ago, I asked Jeffrey, who was in charge of support at the time, what's our queue like for support? And he took him a second and he thought, oh, I think we've had a queue once in a while. And so very rarely do we have a queue. Once you call or chat, be prepared to talk to somebody, because there's rarely a queue. So when you call, we pick up. And we don't do tiers. There's no having to wait through a script to get to somebody who knows what they're doing. The staff and support are phenomenal. They're knowledgeable, and they're super helpful. Well, we're also the home of unlimited lookup. So I'm not going to talk about that too much right now because we'll mention it later, but also amazing uptimes. And we publish our uptimes. We put them on the web because we're proud of them. Now, let's jump into step 1 of cleaning up your international databases with the cleanup portion. So I was reading this article about what is the secret to a happy life? I think it was in Psychology Today or something. And they were mentioning, yoga, meditation, generosity, gift giving, living in the moment and recognizing the things that are around you. And they're all wrong. The real key to happiness is standardization. That's a joke with developers because it makes developers' lives so much easier. And here's why. Let's say you've got a CRM database and it's full of addresses, and you've also got this list that now you've got to merge. Perhaps you've merged with a different company, or you've procured a list somehow, and you need to match those together because you don't want to duplicate, you don't want duplicate addresses. But going through that can be kind of tricky because addresses are, entered in different ways. So perhaps one organization does it one way, another does another. So notice you got 50 Carlton Street, Toronto, Ontario. The address on the left has street instead of a standardized ST. And then on the right, you've got 50 Carlton, and the street is just missing in general. Also on the left, Ontario spelled out, whereas on the right, Ontario is an abbreviation. Now, it's going to be difficult to make that match, but that's where our services come in handy. So by running these lists through our standardization and our validation, you can get validated addresses. So Smarties Streets knows that, hey, 50 Carlton Street should be standardized as 50 Carlton ST. On the right, 50 Carlton that's just missing the street is 50 Carlton Street. And now you have a direct match, makes it easy. And so you can avoid duplicates in your lists. Let's talk about address cleansing. So when we talk about address cleansing, there's a few things that happen. Number one, the address is normalized. So when we were talking about street and the abbreviation, these are all things that can happen without a complete set of data. So you don't need to know the street number or anything like that. But that address is normalized for portions of it are like street or avenue is normalized to ST or AVE or AV, depending on the locale. Also, the address is standardized and formatted. So every country has different formats for how they do their addresses. So the address is standardized and formatted into that country's format. Also, the address is compared to the country's list of known addresses, and we return that to you. We say, okay, now that it's normalized, standardized, compare it to that list of the country's approved known addresses, and we return that to you. So without the proper tools, trying to clean up a database full of unstandardized addresses can really be challenging. Trying to do it one by one or manually is a nightmare. So that's where address validation comes in handy. So there's a few ways that we can do address validation. There's a few tools that we have, and I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to change here. Whoop, go back. Bear with me while I change here. Okay, so you should be seeing my account screen. Thumbs up from Andrew. Thank you. So one of the tools we have is a single address validation tool. So I'm going to click on that. This is a single address validation tool. I'm going to go to, now it's web-based, so easy to use. I'm going to go to international. I'm going to put in the country. And then I'm going to start typing in my address. So I'm going to put in 102 Avenue, Tamarack. And I know that the locality is Shawinigan, QC. I don't know the zip code or the postal code. Let's see what we get back. Okay, we got a standardized address there, 102 Avenue, Tamarack. Now notice I put in 102 AVE. It knows the format is 102 AV. So that's one of the tools that's available. I'm going to go back. We also have our bulk validation tool, and that's here in our list processing tool. So what I would do here is if you've got a CSV file with all your addresses, you can just simply copy that and paste it right into here. So there's my last copied stuff. You can just post those right in there. It will say process a list of X number of records. You hit that button, it will return those. And so what you'll see is your data at first, and then it will return all the additional information. So you take that, you can plug it right back into your spreadsheet, and your addresses are validated. Okay, I'm going to switch back real quick to our presentation. Okay, and then for large, for really large lists, we have our easy to implement API. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on as far as using that to clean up lists and to maintain lists. Now, step 2, prevention. So now that you've got your lists cleaned up, how are you going to prevent those addresses from being corrupted again or from getting corrupt addresses entered in? You want to keep that garbage out now that you've got it all, you've gone through the work of getting it cleaned up. So we suggest using International Address Autocomplete. And International Address Autocomplete is a newly released product. We just released it last month, and it helps prevent poor data from reaching your databases, so poor address data. It standardizes the addresses into the correct format for each country, and if you're using it on web forms, it increases conversion rates, because what it does is it makes it easier for the person who's using, for the end user to enter that address in, because it's suggesting it in real time. So like I just said, suggested in real time. It also uses fuzzy logic during the search to allow for a couple things, for missing directionals. So let's say somebody forgets to put a north or a south. It also allows for substitution of street suffixes. So if you put in avenue instead of street, it understands that. Partial spelling of street suffixes, so STR instead of ST or STRE. And it allows for searching on alternate cities and allows for multiple cities in a country. Now, we also have our Smarties Streets APIs, and they're extremely fast. So we process billions of addresses every day. And with those, we provide great documentation to get them set up and unlimited plans. So when we're talking about great documentation, I want to mention that here's a review we got from a gentleman named Michael. And just on a side note, these reviews on Google were one of the reasons why I decided to join Smarties Streets, because I read through them and saw that, number one, the support is great, the documentation is awesome, the product is awesome, the price is great, and I thought this is something I can be really proud of. So Michael says, Smarties Streets has been awesome for us. Tech support is incredibly fast, although the documentation is so thorough that in the last year of working with them, I've only called in once. And that's we hear that over and over again. And in fact, some of my developer friends, when I was looking at joining Smarties Streets, they looked through the documentation, like, wow, you guys really have great documentation on getting this set up. So one of the ways to maintain your cleanliness in your international database is by using these APIs. And we basically said, to coin a phrase by the late Mr. Popeil, you can set it and forget it. You don't have to worry about it. By using our APIs and by using an unlimited plan, I just want to touch on that really quick. We have unlimited plans available to where you don't necessarily want to be an accountant, right? As a developer, you want to be able to set it up. You want to not have to worry about it as far as how many lookups am I using. When I say lookups, we mean API calls. You just want to be able to set it up, let it run, and not have to worry about it ever. Plans really help with that, because you don't have to predict, am I going to use, over 10,000? You just set it, you get one bill, it's a flat rate, you don't have to worry about it, and it just runs. Now, there's an added bonus. We also offer international geocoding, and the international geocoding that we offer is the best international geocoding available. It's property level accurate for all of Western Europe, and also Canada, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, India, and more. And it also covers 200 other countries. And so we'll do its own webinar on international geocoding coming up, but I just wanted to tease that a little bit so that you guys can look forward to that. Now, if you're wanting to try this out, go ahead. We put this QR code here so you can try it out and get a free trial. So what you'll get with that is you'll get 100 international address lookups, 1,000 international autocomplete lookups, and then as a side bonus, you get 5,000 US autocomplete and 1,000 US address lookups. So just go ahead and scan that QR code and we'll get you a free trial. We'll get you hooked up. With that, we'll take your questions. We have
Great.
Jeffrey Duncan here, and he'll be able to help us with our in-depth questions.
Excellent. We do have a couple questions for Jeffrey and you. Is it possible to find an address inside of free text? For example, I live at 5th Avenue, New York. Can you want to meet up or whatever?
So looking at that, well, looking at that address, that question, there's not enough in there to actually find an address. 5th Avenue, New York is just a street in New York, a long street. So that one our system would not find. If you can give me a little bit more, I can help better. Perhaps if you said, I live at 123 5th Avenue in New York City, that one we could find. I know that our US tool would find that. I would need to check a little bit further on the international. I think the international would not.
But could we have that scrub inside of an open text field,
Yes.
including all of the sentence I live at, and it would cut that out?
Yes. In fact, to go a little bit further on that, using our US extract API, if you were to do a Google search for McDonald's in Tampa Bay, Florida, it would return probably between 5 and 10 addresses for McDonald's on that page. If you just hit Command A and copy all the text on that page and throw that at our extract API, it will then find all the addresses that are listed on that page
And verify them.
Yes. So yes, free text, it can do that.
That's great. With international autocomplete, how are the lookups counted? Is it going to check for a match after every letter that a person types? And is that going to count against their lookups, their lookup quota?
Good question. We count a lookup as any request that comes to our system. So if you, on your side, you get to design how you are sending the requests to us. So when you're creating the web form or the client, if you want to send a request to our system after every keystroke, you can. Thus, a submission of 15 characters, that would count as 15 lookups. Many of our clients have chosen to realize that some customers, some end users type faster than they can read. And so they instead, on their web interface, they choose to not send a request to Smarties Streets until there's a pause of at least 300 milliseconds. That means if I type in 123 Main Street, Provo, and then I pause for a second, only then do they send their request and see the responses. Otherwise, the customer is just typing faster than they can read anyway.
I see. That's excellent. If I'm interested in international autocomplete, but I have a list of my own countries that I want to make sure are covered, is there a place I can go to double check the countries covered by Smarties Streets International Autocomplete?
Yes. Well, first off, it's probably all the countries that you would be interested in. The ones that we don't have autocomplete in are the countries that don't have very good addressing. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not interested in them. So if you are, you certainly can. In our documentation, in the resources page, you'll see a list of all these supported countries for the international autocomplete.
We've got time for one more question. Let me take a look at these. How does Smarties Streets determine the standardized way to display an international address? Are those standardized views that residents of those countries are used to seeing, or some sort of ISO standard?
Yeah, great question. It is the way that the residents are used to seeing it. A little bit more about that. We subscribe to the address standards that are reported by that country to the UPU, the Universal Postal Union. So it's the address formats that customers or that residents in that country are accustomed to seeing, and those are reported to the UPU. They're updated when there are changes, and we update our format. So it's not just the Democratic Republic of Congo, big long word for the country. We use the colloquial or the common phrasing and the common address formatting for that country. And it even changes per region in the country, and we utilize that.
That is fantastic. All right, that's great. That's all the time. We told you we were going to keep it short. We're keeping it short. So if you want to check this out, again, smartstreets.com/free-trial. Thanks so much for this great presentation, Wes. It's been fantastic, and I know our audience has loved it. Looking at their comments and questions, this is great. Also, a big thank you to Jeffrey for taking questions behind the scenes and being here to answer the more technical stuff. And of course, thank you to everybody who has attended and participated in this webinar. We hope to see you guys next time, and I hope you have a great day. See ya.
Thanks.
See you, everyone.